Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Espresso Outlet YouTube channel. Today I have the Nuova Simonelli Musica espresso machine, and I wanted to do just kind of a quick disassembly. We're not going to take the whole thing apart, but we're just talking just bare minimum maintenance. Maybe you just need to check on a fitting or something like that. It's really easy to get into, so let's get started. Typically, you just need a screwdriver. I have a multi-tooled screwdriver that has different flat and Phillips head screws. And I also have an array of Allen keys. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, make sure that your machine is unplugged because there could potentially be some live parts in here. So we have it unplugged to the side. I do recommend just kind of removing everything. Here's your drip tray. It just kind of pulls off. We can set that aside. And in this case, we're gonna remove the water tank. So it just lifts out like so, and we'll put that over by the sink. Next, we're gonna pull off these two side panels, and you'll need an Allen key to do that. I did want to note one of the errors I had when I took this apart. You'll notice later in the video that I have the side panels off first because I actually had a loose side panel, but I actually recommend opening up your water reservoir door and removing these two screws. To pull this off, you may need to take a screwdriver and slightly pull out. The whole tray will lift forward. But know that you'll gain access to these Allen heads much easier to remove the side panels if you remove this top tray first. I did reach through the little slots on the side, but it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that. So I recommend taking this portion off first. And once those are loosened, these side panels do come off quite easily. There are some clips at the bottom, so be careful. You don't want to damage them. These are those clips that I mentioned, and there's just kind of some holes in the bottom of your side panel. So it's as simple as just lifting that side panel off and removing the ground. We'll set this aside. Now let's do the same with the other side, just kind of prying outward and lifting off the panel like so. Again, I'm just going to remove the ground. Be careful with your side panels because they will scratch. To remove the rear panel, if you open up your door for your water tank, you'll see two more screws and you'll want to loosen those as well. And then the rear cover comes off the same as the sides. Again, there is a ground wire to be careful. So if by chance you do need to remove the front of your espresso machine, there's two Phillips head screws on the front, and similarly there's two more Phillips head screws below. It's a more extensive disassembly that we're really just not going to cover today. We're just going to show you some of the basics and locations of the parts within the machine. Okay, so let's begin looking at some of the components that you may end up needing to service over the life of this machine. To begin with, we have the main control board. You can think of this as kind of the brain that runs the espresso machine. So quite easily accessible, and it has a ribbon cable that comes from your front display into the main controller. Beneath that, we have our heating element for our boiler. This is a heat exchanger boiler, so there is just one heating element. Very easily accessible. You can just unscrew this from the side. Beneath that, we have our pressure stat. This is a 30 amp pressure stat, so very large pressure stat. And from the front, you actually have a cover that is removable, and you can easily adjust the pressure stat without really opening up the machine other than removing the drip tray and a plastic cover. As I mentioned a minute ago, there's this plastic cover that covers up this pressure stat. So if you need to adjust the pressure stat, it's as easy as pulling out the drip tray and pulling out that plastic cover. Plastic cover is slightly difficult to remove, but it's not too bad. So taking a look at the rear of the machine, we have the water reservoir removed. This is the water reservoir version. There is a switch off to the side that may become damaged at some point as you put your water tank in. So it just is there to know if your water tank is installed or not. Also, there's this thing that looks kind of like a bolt, but what it is a magnetic sensor, and you have a float inside of your water tank. So if you try to put your water tank in backwards, it obviously does not go all the way down, and it can't use that sensor. So it must be put in the proper way, and it'll align with that sensor. When the water level gets too low, it triggers that magnetic sensor and will turn off the machine. You also, if you don't know, you do have a main power switch or a button on the front, and it's a more of a digital button. But on the back, you also have a hard disconnect switch. So there is if for whatever reason you just got the machine and it's not turning on, know that there is a main power switch in the rear of the machine. We'll end up taking a look from a different angle. But looking at the other side of the machine, you mostly have some tubing. At the base here, you do have your vibratory pump. So if that pump ever needs to be replaced, very easy to access. It will take a little bit of time to get all these fittings removed, but know that the pump itself is really not that bad to remove. You can also see the side of your pressure gauge, as well as some other tubing. We're going to take a better look of it from the top. Okay, so it's always a little bit difficult to see, but know on the inside that you do have a couple of solenoids at the top. Let's take a look. I believe this one is for your steam, and this one is for your brew head. So you do have a couple of solenoids that you may end up needing to repair or replace at some point during the life of this machine, but quite easily accessible. You'd really only need to take off the top panel. You also have your OPV beneath that, so really easy to access and maintain if you end up getting a leaky OPV. Okay, taking another peek in the side of this machine, you can see our three-way valve. And if you ever need to replace this, you may end up needing to remove this front panel. Really the hardest part of removing this front panel is there's a little C-clip to remove this plastic lever for your steam arm. Past that is just 4 Phillips head screws to pull that whole front panel off, so quite easy. This three-way valve, I mean, they are common on just about every machine to, at some point during the life of the machine, cause some issues or some leaking. But in this case, it's really not too bad. You may even be able to replace it without removing the front. You do have some collector lines that dump into your drip tray, so you'll want to make sure if you have any like odd leak that all your collector pipes are connected and that they are lined up in that drip tray so that you're not getting a mess. Here, let's pan down. So this is a collector right here, and that'll dump into your drip tray. On the front of your machine, there's really not a whole lot to do maintenance-wise that you can't really gain access to on the day-to-day. But as I mentioned just a second ago, this is the collector for your like overpressure valve and your three-way valve. So make sure that if for whatever reason you're getting a little bit of a drip that's not going in your drip tray, that this is lined up properly. Past that, it's pretty simple machine, really. You have your control interface in the front. There is a ribbon cable that comes out the back of this and comes along to your main control board. So if for whatever reason your buttons go bad, it's really not too bad to replace. Really just need to remove this front cover. So if you have any questions about this machine, we don't really service these machines. That's what's really nice about Nuova Simonelli in general, is they have an excellent partnership with a lot of service techs that are experts in servicing these machines. So when you buy this machine, you can have it professionally installed, and you can also have it professionally maintained by Nuova technicians. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions about this machine or other machines, make sure to reach out to us on the Espresso Outlet website, or you can try to leave us a comment below. If it's going to be a maintenance related item, it's probably best to reach out via email. Thanks.